Greetings, everybody. Will Lehr, managing partner here with Perpetual Assets, with our good friend Mickey Fulp on the line or on the video here with us today. Mickey, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well, Will, and you?
Doing well, thank you. Good to see you.
Likewise.
Mickey is a geologist with 35 years experience in exploration and analysis in the resource industry. And he is called the mercenary geologist for good reason. Mickey told me some fun stories about swinging from helicopters and doing resource projects. So he's not your average geologist. We're bringing Mickey on today, and we're going a little bit off the beaten path, kind of not the typical conversation of mining and geology. So again, thanks for joining us, Mickey. I'll fire away here.
Okay, my pleasure.
What many of our friends in the resource community may not know about you is your passion for self-sustainability, individual liberties, and exposing an oppressive regime. That being said, what are your thoughts on the current situation in Syria?
Well, Syria is a blemish in the Middle East, to say the least. I don't quite get what we're doing there. It appears to me the U.S. is still trying to expand its role as the world's police force, and it appears to me the reason is so we can bring our boys back home and fight unwinnable wars on domestic U.S. soil, such as the war on drugs, now in its 42nd year. The war on terror, I would argue that was started by Clinton in 1998. And we have a new one now that's 5 years old, and I will call that Obama's war on the Bill of Rights.
It really is unfortunately, it's a sad time to be an American. I mean, even just this morning, I was reading the reports about how the White House is basically saying that even if there is no support from the UN or there is no support from allies, that they're just going to strike in Syria anyway. You've got Russia and China saying there would be catastrophic circumstances if that were to happen. And it's like, is everybody asleep? What is going on? It blows my mind.
I really have no idea. If you look at it, Syria produces, well, before the Civil War, it produced 400,000 barrels a day. That's about 0.5% of world production. It essentially produces no natural gas, so it's not a player in the world oil scene. I think it really has to do, well, number one, with Egypt, and Egypt controls the Suez Canal and the Suez to Mediterranean pipeline, and those are important for transport of oil, but that's still only 2%. Yeah, here's what it really comes down to, in my opinion. It's all about Iran and Israel, and it's certainly not coincidental that the U.S. provides about $3 billion in military aid to Israel every year, and people probably aware of that, the number one country on our list, but we also provide 1.3 billion in military aid to Egypt. So with the current turmoil in Egypt, there's no doubt that we have supported the military coup that overthrew the president in the middle of the summer. So it's a bigger kettle of fish that's being boiled here, and it all has to do with the geopolitics of oil and the Middle East and our policy of Israel and the Arabs.
Right. What impact do you think this turmoil moving forward will have on the resource industry, namely oil and gold?
Well, I think we've already seen the impact. Oil is $1.09, that's WTI. We've also seen a closure of the Brent to WTI spread. It's down to about $7 right now. Natural gas, of course, hasn't reacted because those are regional markets. Henry Hub at about 350. Gold has gone on quite the run, up better than 10% over the last month or so, and that certainly is partly at least due to geopolitical considerations. These two commodities, oil and gold, are the most sensitive to geopolitical events in the world.
Mm-hmm. Mickey, you wrote a fantastic article back in July of 2008 called Socialistic Capitalism. Here we are more than 5 years later. That sort of brought me to the question, when and how did you quote unquote wake up to the truth or unplug from the matrix, if you will?
Oh, I would say it was from a very early age. You know, I've always been a voracious reader. In first grade, I was challenged to read 100 books during the school year. They challenged the entire class, and I was the only one to do it. But and I always have been somewhat a rebel against authority. I would get straight A's, but always get marked down for attitude and daydreaming in class and talking back to your teachers. So I've always kind of thought outside the box, and by the time I was in my middle teens, I started reading the classic dystopian novels such as 1984 and Animal Farm and Brave New World and Player Piano by Vonnegut, Anthem by Ayn Rand, Fahrenheit 451 by Bradbury. So that sort reading led me to open my eyes, and I certainly came out of high school as a social libertarian. I toyed around with the left-leaning spectrum of that in college. I campaigned for McGovern, but that was really campaigning against Nixon, I think. But I became a full-fledged libertarian by the end of my college years, and have either voted libertarian, occasionally Republican, or as P.J. O'Rourke would say, don't encourage the bastards by voting. And so I've not voted a couple of times, but this whole libertarian social consciousness sort of thing is something I've been attuned to for quite some time.
You mentioned the novel 1984, and I remember reading that had a profound impact on you, did it not?
Oh, it certainly did. And I actually reread that for the third or fourth time within the last year. And it's quite chilling, and there's no doubt that although Orwell predicted it in 1984, it took a few more years to pass, but the intrusiveness of our government and industry, in fact, you know, I mean, you're crazy to buy a smart TV right now because you're going to have a video camera looking at you and recording everything you watch. And geez, that's 1984 just down to the wire. So,
how long do you think that this current monetary and banking system can sustain in its format?
Well, I think that's the $64 trillion question right now. And I kind of picked that number. I mean, back in the day, there was a TV show called the $64,000 question. But your question, which you posed to me in advance, so I had time to do a little prepping. I went and I looked up the private and public in the U.S., and it's now, as of last night, and you know, you're watching the debt clock, so it swirling by, it was $59.7 trillion. So we're getting there. Now when that's going to happen, who knows? You know, this could go on for a very, very long time. But all current fiat currencies fail, and that's why we're hard money guys, and certainly opine that gold is money and not much else.
Agreed. Couldn't agree more. Do you think that the central bankers, the politicians, have a grand plan, or would you say that their grip on humanity is slipping away?
Well, I think the megalomaniacs have always had grand plans, and that's one world government from Alexander the Great to Genghis Khan to Napoleon to Hitler on the military end, and then on the other end you've got the Joseph Smith of the religious end, Joseph Smith, and the fundamentalist one world Christians and the apocalypse and the Baha'i faith. And now we have the banksters and the politicians on board with this. So I think the plan has always been in place. I think it's probably the nature of humanity to generate these people that want to control the world. But they have never been able to do that. So we've never achieved civilization, even on an economic scale. So, humans are, there's enough of us that are rebels and refuse to bow to authority that I'm optimistic that it certainly isn't going to happen in my lifetime.
I hope you're right. As I progress more and more as an awake being, I hope that the bastards can kick the can down the road for another decade, because what does it do? It allows us to prepare more and more, to wake up more and more people. The advent of the internet and just the expansion of consciousness is a powerful thing. So I hope that you're right, my friend.
Well, it's also human nature to be optimistic. The people that prosper and survive are optimistic people, and so we've got to think that if it wasn't for the internet, we wouldn't have the Arab Spring a couple of years ago, and so the world's knowledge base is expanding, and certainly our economic base is expanding, and that bodes well for the industry that I'm interested in, the commodities resource industry, because everybody in the quote emerging market countries, and I'm being politically correct there. We used to call those third world countries, but most of those people know what we have now, and they want it too. So 25% of the world still goes to bed at night and can't turn on the lights. So that bodes well for things like copper and gold and oil and various other commodities.
That's a good segue into the final question, Mickey. What do you say to the expatriates, to those that believe the U.S. is beyond saving and quite frankly becoming far too dangerous to stay? I know that you travel all over the world. You frequently travel. What are your thoughts on that? What do you say to those folks that are bugging out?
Well, I would say the same thing I say to our government and other people is, don't tread on me and I will not tread on you. So I'm a live and let live guy. I've traveled, worked in 30 different countries, and I look at every place that I've been, and certainly I've only been to about 1/6 of the countries in the world. But where are you going to go? What's better than this? I have never found a place that I wanted to live other than the good old US of A. I look at some of these expats, and there's movements that with people that are in the investment conference speaking circuit and in commodities. And I look at the places they go, and they consider idyllic or they're utopia, and coincidentally, most of them happen to be in the Americas. South America is certainly a destination now, but in Mexico, well, I've lived in Mexico, and it's one of the most oppressive fascist places I've ever lived in my life. Corruption. I've lived in Chile, and it's a very bureaucratic, litigious state that although there's a rule of law that's followed, and taxes are very high. Argentina is the country of choice for some of these folks, but geez, that's the only modern day country has ever progressed from a first world to a second world country. So the political situation, I think, is untenable with a Peronist in Argentina. So where are you going to go? That's what I'd ask them. But that said, each to his own.
Agreed, my friend. Fantastic information, Mickey. Tell our friends and our viewers out there where they can find you.
Well, I run a free subscription newsletter. I run a sponsor model, so you can find all my work at mercenarygeologist.com. If you're a free subscriber, you get my stock picks, which is really the way I make my money is in the stock market. I also have 24/7 FM audio station, mercenarygeologist.fm, of which all my interviews go up on that. And Twitter following now, well over 32,000 followers on Twitter, and that's at Mercenary Geo.
Awesome, Mickey. Well, thanks so much. It's always a pleasure speaking with you. I look forward to the next conference, next time we get to cling a couple beer bottles together.
Well, I certainly look forward, and I wish you and Gus all the luck in the world in your new business, and likewise, I look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you, my friend. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Take care.